Well, hello scrappers, Mike here, welcome back to my channel. And today I've got a lot of maintenance to do around the lab. So I thought I'd give you a sort of behind the scenes look at the sort of day-to-day maintenance I have to do just to keep the lab up and running and keep, producing gold from e-waste and keep producing these videos for you to watch. There's a lot to do behind the scenes. Maybe more than you realize. If you want to get into this e-waste recycling stuff, there's a lot to do. So I'll just show you some of the little jobs I have to do from time to time. And some days it seems like I do nothing but maintenance and don't get anything else accomplished. So yeah, we'll take a look at what some of the typical maintenance around here is like. Just a little periodic lab maintenance here. Is it important that my workbench be nice and white and stain-free? Probably not. Is it embarrassing to see it all stained, gouged, and disgusting looking in my videos? Yes. So, periodically, I give it a new coat. Actually, I think I'm going to have to give it a couple of coats to cover up all the stains from the last few months. But it's starting to look better. I think one more coat and it'll look okay. Just part of the maintenance I do periodically out here to keep things running so I can keep my videos coming out and just keep collecting gold from e-waste. Well, there we go. A couple coats of paint hides a multitude of stains, spills, and assorted oopsies. Looking much better. You know, I think when I finally give up this hobby of recovering gold and silver from e-waste, I think the last thing I got to do before I fully retire is burn this bench and process the ashes for gold and silver. I think that'll be my last job. Yep. Okay, on to the next bit of maintenance. I went ahead and painted the top on this rolling bench too while I was at it, just to protect it from the weather a little bit better. So, just a little more maintenance. While I had the paint and the roller out, might as well. I'm going to do some maintenance on my home-built fume hood here. Couple things. Gonna replace this bilge blower, which is starting to give me trouble. I can tell it's on its way out. I think the bearings are about shot in it. I get about 6 months out of one of these before I have to replace them. Even though it's supposedly the motor's supposedly sealed, the fumes going through here, the hydrogen chloride, the nitrogen dioxide, the sulfur dioxide, the whatever, the steam gets to it after a while. Like I say, I get about 6 months out of it. And I can tell by the squealing it does and how loud it's getting, the bearings are about shot. And eventually it'll wobble so bad that the plastic blades in there will hit the side and they'll start breaking. So, need to replace that. I've got a big beaker of gold solution in there. I want to drop the gold today, but I don't want to have this fail on me when the fume hood is full of sulfur dioxide after I put the SMB in and have to run from a cloud of that. So I want to go ahead and replace this and get that up and running on the new one. Before I do that, I also see, now that I'm back here looking at the back of the fume hood, that the caulking around this arm right here is starting to break loose. So I'm going to have to re-caulk that. I've got some silicone caulk ready to go. I can re-caulk that. At least this time I don't have wasp nests back here. I don't spend that much time around this side of the fume hood, so I don't always know what's going on. One time I was back here to try and replace the blower, and there was a big wasp nest formed back there, and they were not happy about having me around. But just to review for any of you who are not familiar with my home-built fume hood, it's pretty simple. It's just a four-sided box, basically. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no bottom to it. It just sits on my workbench. And the other side has plexiglass doors on it that I can open and close to get in and out of the fume hood. And there's a little gap underneath the doors so the air can flow in and then around, take the fumes and out through the fume hood. This hose just goes around the side of the building out into the yard. We have about 3.5 acres here. There's nobody else around. That just takes the fumes far away from me. Since most of the fumes are heavier than air, one question I get a lot is, why don't you build a stack and run the fumes up? Because the fumes that I'm producing are heavier than air. I had a stack originally on my fume hood. And if the air was calm, there wasn't a wind like there is today, the fumes would come right back down on me. So I just run them out into the yard, far away from me. They hug the ground as they dissipate. No big problems with that. A little patch of dead grass around the end of the hose. That's it. Okay. So got a light up on top of the fume hood too that shines down into it. I have a piece of glass covering the light so the fumes can't get up into it and rot it out, because they will. The fumes produced in here pretty much destroy everything. So, Coast Guard helicopter flying over trying to drown me out. But yeah, so I got to replace this this blower. It's pretty simple. Usually takes me about 5 or 10 minutes tops. Disconnect the wires up here on these wire nuts. Alright, so there's the wires free. I need to disconnect the hoses on either end. It's by loosening up these hose clamps. I've got my gloves on because number one, it's very dirty back here. Number two, usually there's some condensate here, and that condensate generally is very acidic. Kind of nasty. So I wear gloves. Alright, so there's just 2 screws holding this thing in place. Them out. And there's the old blower. Yeah, the bearings are not so good in it. It's not so free turning anymore. Getting really loud. The motor is sealed. I don't know if you can see up in there. It's covered with rubber. Got wires going in through grommets. But still, somehow, the bearings go bad in these pretty quickly. Maybe it would help if I didn't buy the cheapest ones I could find on Amazon. But, you know, something that's got to be replaced every 6 months. Why buy something expensive, right? Ah, there it is. Okay. Not so obvious on this one. Okay, so the air is blowing this way. So this is the way I want to put it back on. I want to put it on backwards. A couple screws back in to hold it in place. And I'll tighten the clamps down again. This clamp down. Yeah, that's all breaking loose there. There's nothing but caulk holding it in place. The caulk's breaking loose, so I need to re-caulk that. Don't want to have a big air leak on the back of the box and reduce the suction. Okay, where did that clamp go? There it is. Hose clamp fell off. Wasn't seeing it immediately. Just getting this hose back on is the hardest part of the whole operation. Now that slid on really nice. Clamp around the metal ribs in it. There we are. Tighten it back down. Okay. Now, what I got to do, I need to strip back these wires some more so that I can put them in the wire nuts over there. So this is a 12-volt blower, built for use in boats, bilge blower. I've got a little 12-volt power supply up here on the other side of the light that powers it. Neaten up this wiring a little bit, get it up out of the way so nothing snags on it, doesn't flap around in the breeze. Need a longer wire tie. Yeah, I guess it'll go. Okay, there we are. Make sure these are good and tight. Okay. Flip the switch, make sure it's going to work. Oh, it's so quiet. Can you hear it? Nice. The other one was just screeching. I knew the bearings were about shot. So we're good for about another 6 months, but I'll get on Amazon later today and order another one just so I have it on hand when this one inevitably fails. Okay, so now we do a little caulking, and that should conclude today's maintenance session on the old fume hood here. Let's see. There we go. Do a little caulking around here. Yeah, another reason to wear gloves. I don't get the caulk on my fingers. And once this sets up, won't have any more air leaks back here. And there we are. My cheap home-built, but works pretty darn good fume hood's up and running again. Ready to make some gold over there on the other side. So I will get set up for that. I got about 2 liters of gold-bearing liquid in there that I need to drop the gold out of. But I did not want that sulfur dioxide in my face. All right. You know, I need lights so you guys can see what I'm doing in here. And, well, this one's all, the springs on it have all rusted out and fallen off. And I'm going to have to replace this because it doesn't want to stay where I put it anymore and point the direction I want it to point anymore. And that's getting quite annoying. So, yeah, the lighting, it's always a constant battle. Okay. Let me look for a replacement for that. Yeah, working in an outdoor lab has its disadvantages. Blowing the leaves out's about a weekly thing, sometimes more often if the leaves are falling heavy from the trees or if the wind is blowing them in so that they're piling up in here ankle deep. Just another little bit of lab maintenance that has to be done from time to time. Well, keeping the plexiglass clean so you and I can see what's going on in here. That's another constant battle. It's constantly being exposed to fumes and splashes, and splatters, and the occasional minor explosion even. Plexiglass isn't coming that clean anymore. Probably going to have to replace it soon. That's some other periodic maintenance. Replacing the plexiglass now and then. Yep. So we can see what's going on in the old fume hood. Well, it's a little better anyway. I guess it'll do for now. So today, we're doing a little different maintenance. My stock pot over here. This is my stock pot, and it is full. I turned the bubbler off that I normally keep in it. It's been off for the better part of a week. So that will allow any solids suspended in the liquid column to settle to the bottom, because those solids are going to be precious metals. At least a lot of them are. But I want to siphon off some of the liquid on top here into my waste bucket down here. My waste bucket, I keep iron in it. And the copper that's in the stock pot solution will cement out on the iron. You can see that the iron in here is all covered with cement copper already. I mean, look at the layer of copper on that. These are old lawnmower blades that I've cut up and put in this bucket. And there's some rebar in here, and there's some long bolts and stuff. Basically, any kind of scrap iron or steel I can find, I just throw in the bucket. And since I keep copper in my stock pot to precipitate out any precious metals that go into the stock pot, the liquid from the stock pot is just loaded with copper. So the copper will cement out here in the waste bucket. Look at that. Look at that. That's copper. This was a thick rod, but it's all eaten up. As the copper cements out, the iron goes into solution, and you wind up with an acidic solution with a lot of iron in it. But I have a video on how I process the liquid coming out of my waste bucket to make it safe to dispose of. Okay? You get the heavy metals out of it, like copper, and then it's safe to dispose of. So I'm just going to siphon off the top gallon or two of liquid off of my stock pot into the waste bucket, and then I'll have more room in the stock pot for solutions from gold recovery. So I don't want to go down to where all the solids are down in the bottom of the stock pot. I just want to take the top little bit off. And I'll fill the waste bucket up basically until it's pretty much full to the brim. And I'll let wash some of the copper off there. And I'll just let it, you can see fresh copper forming on the bare iron there where I scraped the copper off. That's probably not showing up because I'm zoomed out too far. But as soon as this solution touches the iron, the copper starts coming out of solution on it, starts cementing out. But I will fill this bucket up pretty much to the brim, and that should empty my stock pot down to about halfway anyhow. And I'll let the liquid sit here in the waste bucket for a few weeks. And when I finally decant it out of the waste bucket, it'll come out just a clear yellow. It's not green anymore like this stuff because there's no copper left in it anymore. The yellow is just from iron. And the iron is easy enough to get out of solution when I treat this stuff. Okay, now I got some room in my stock pot. The waste bucket's full again. It's this waste bucket's about done because it's probably close to half full of cement copper. So at some point I'll pull the remaining iron out of it and start another waste bucket. And then maybe melt down that cement copper and take it to the scrapyard. So now I got room in the stock pot. Now I got some other maintenance to do, unfortunately. Never ends. Now that I got the level of the stock pot down to where I can get more waste liquid in it, that's exactly what we're going to do. But first, I'm going to put this bubbler back in. I have a link to glass on the end of the hose just to make sure that the hose sinks to the bottom. And keep the liquid circulating in there. I keep copper in there, but you have to keep the liquid circulating. Otherwise, the copper will form an impermeable skin on it, and it won't work to precipitate out the precious metals anymore. So you got to keep the liquid moving. So that's why there's a bubbler. So all that newly acquired space in my stock pot's about to be taken up by the liquid from my temporary stock pot going in. Whenever I precipitate gold out of solution, the waste solution goes in this temporary stock pot. And it sits in here basically until it gets full. And I don't know if you can see that. Dark in there. Any remaining gold that wants to precipitate out of solution, or any of it that's caught up in the water column, will settle out to the bottom of my temporary stock pot. And I can very easily get it out of the temporary stock pot here. I can just run this liquid through a filter and capture all this gold real easy. Processing the main stock pot, a lot more difficult. Okay. There's that bit of maintenance done. Let's move on to something else. Okay, while I'm waiting on the liquid in my temporary stock pot to settle again so that I can pour some more of it off without pouring off a lot of the gold, I got another stock pot maintenance item I need to do here. I need some more copper to put in it. And we're having a new building built on the property. When the electricians wired it, they were kind enough to throw away a whole lot of copper wire. And I cleverly pulled it right out of the dumpster over there. Initially, I was thinking, well, I'll take this stuff to the scrapyard. Then I thought, well, wait a minute. You need some nice clean copper for your stock pot. And here we go, some nice clean copper. There's a lot of stuff in here that's already stripped. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to start stripping it, though. But, yeah, this copper will ensure that any precious metals that make it into the stock pot with the fluids I put in there will cement out and stay in the stock pot and not wind up going into the waste bucket. So all this is going into the stock pot here in a second. So I poured off the bulk of the rest of the liquid in here, and now I'm going to capture whatever gold's in here in this filter. And I'll throw the filter in. Looks like we got a fair amount. I'll throw the filter in the next time I'm dissolving gold in aqua regia. I'll throw the filter in and I'll capture this gold too. And my temporary stock pot is empty and ready to receive more gold liquids. More gold recovery liquids. And this is by no means all of the maintenance I do around here. This is just a little snapshot of it. It's just never ending. There's a whole lot more. Greasing the bearings on the Smash-O-Matic and the Mighty Mill, that has to happen from time to time. Glassware cleaning is a constant. It never ends. And if I was to put it in our dishwasher, I'm sure my wife would murder me. So it all has to be done by hand by me. It never ends. Something's always breaking. Something always needs to be cleaned. Something always needs to be done. So, and look at this. What did we start this video with, huh? We started this video with painting the workbench. Look at the workbench. In the few weeks that I have put together this video over as I'm doing maintenance, the workbench is gone to hell. It's almost ready to be repainted again. Spills, stains, gouges, burns, you name it, it's all here. So, yeah, the maintenance is never ending. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick look at the maintenance I do around my lab. If so, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to see my future videos on gold recovery and all kinds of other stuff. Check out my second channel, Electro Geek 64. There's good stuff going on over there if you're at all interested in electronics or retro computing. And I'll see you in the next video from here at the lab. See you then. Bye.